In tonight's episode, we finally take on the Handyman in one-on-one Mortal Kombat. We have a good chat about who this guy is, what his identity is, what his role is, and some of the different theories going around the internet forums at this time. We find a nice quiet moment and talk about some of our favourite quotes in the whole game, what some of their meanings might be, and also ask you what your favourite quotes are. And we find these two hapless souls here who exist purely to die. This is Bioshock Infinite Explained. Greetings and welcome back to Bioshock Infinite Explained Part 13. As always, a quick spoiler warning. The whole point of this walkthrough is to explain all the plot lines, to draw the links of all the characters, so there will be giveaways of the ending right from the start, so if you haven't yet played it through, please look away now. And for those of you that of course have played through the game before will know that at this particular point of the game we are about to have our first encounter with the Handyman. Obviously we've met him before and he's thrown us off bridges before, but this is the first time we actually have to try and take one down. And therefore we are going to put together a bit of a custom build. I've skipped out the bit where I actually modify my gear, but I'll just tell you what I'm running with. I'm running with Handyman Nemesis, which is one of the ones that we got from the DLC. That will give us plus 50% damage. So if, for example, every shot was going to do 2 damage, now it's going to do 3. If it was going to do 4, then it's now going to do 6. So it adds on half again, which is pretty cool. We're also going to use, I think it's called Headmaster, which is probably a teaching pun. And that's going to give us plus 50% critical damage, which is pretty good. And then we're going to stick with our electric stun in case any kind of unless we get attacked by any kind of people while we're fighting the Handyman. And I think our last slot we're running with the ammo advantage, which will give us more bullets in each chamber of the gun, so we're not going to spend so much time reloading. Now, if you've seen my How to Beat the Handyman video, and I hope you have if you are a loyal subscriber, then you'll know that my favourite technique for taking down Handyman is the crows. Because if we keep slinging the crows at him, in theory, we should never get hit, as long as we don't run out of salt, and we kind of don't allow ourselves to get just distracted or make the pauses between each crows too long. But as you can see, although he is an incredibly powerful figure, he's with our custom setup, his health backing away. His health is actually going down relatively quickly, which is great. So there is our first battle with a Handyman.
I must admit, you know your way around a brawl.
Yes, I do. There is our first battle mode with a Handyman on 1999 mode complete. So hurrah for you and hurrah for me. We are victorious. Now, the Handyman himself is, as we have discussed previously, is quite a sad figure, really. A scientist, used to work at the siphon where Elizabeth was kept, but due to the proximity... It's okay, Elizabeth.
Can't see how I might have changed your sense of that.
You protected me.
Job's a job.
Yes, I did. Quite a sad...
We can enter now.
Give me a second.
Quite a sad figure. He got kind of some sort of cancer or tumours while working at the siphon, but rather than dying, we kind of using stolen technology from Rapture to convert him into some sort of machine. But interestingly, he doesn't seem to be able to sleep. If you overhear what he says, when he's kind of more dormant, he talks about really being desperate to sleep. Also at the beginning of the game as well, he talks about being wanting to able to sleep. But let's just listen to our Vox phone from Daisy.
One day, ain't nobody noticed me. Then they think I done for Lady Comstock, and well...
Sorry, Daisy, let me just restock my ammo, and then please continue with your story.
Everybody noticed me. I head to Finkton, and I hide deep. The more they look, the deeper I go. Only thing a color child can count on is the fact they invisible.
It's really nice to see in Bioshock that almost every character is given a storyline arc. You know, they've nearly all come from somewhere. They nearly all have motivations. They nearly all come to a point where their lives change in some way. And it's nice kind of picking, really nice, the whole point of this series really is to put together all of these backstories, but even the minor characters, the smaller characters, such as Lady Comstock or Preston Downs or Esther, the policewoman from earlier, although they might only be given one vox or two, they all have a motivation and a character, which is great. Our little musical quest continues.
Music. It's coming from that tear.
I've never heard that song before.
I don't suspect anyone's heard that song.
Well, from this we can deduce that Booker is not a fan of Creedence Sundance Festival, otherwise he would be well aware of that particular number, which I think we mentioned in a previous video. We will hear several times, both through the tear and sung by one of the Vox Populi during the revolution, which comes a little bit later.
Want to hold on to this?
Of course I would love to hold on to that. I love money. I love money. It's my thing. I've been having a look through all of your comments, and thank you very much, so much for them. Please continue. It gives me lots to debate and discuss.
We just need to head inside and find Mr. Lin. And just call me Booker.
And what's one of the threads that kind of came up, which was interesting, was what's your favourite quote in Bioshock Infinite? Which are the ones that really make you think, or the ones that make you think, you know, well said, and of course, which are the ones that make you go, ugh? I mentioned in the previous video that I really don't like the puppy line that Elizabeth comes up with. You know, I think something on the lines of, well, I want a puppy, but I'm not going to get one either. I mean, that was bleh. But there's some really, really good ones as well. I mean, the opening line about do it, my boy!
Let's listen to Fink.
You know, the best kind of interview is one where the applicant doesn't know he's being evaluated. But I've watched you since the other day at the lottery. You're a brute. And in times like this, I could use a brute.
What do you want, Fink?
Labor unrest is coming to it. Now, Fitzroy has got the jungle all riled up. A man like me could have use of an old Pinkerton like you.
He refers to us being as an ex-employee of Pinkerton, who's the man we worked for back in our old universe as kind of like a debt collector or a strike disbander. Now this poor gentleman up here is Fink's ex-head of security, as far as we can decode. Fink was something went wrong in the plant. There was a bit of a rebellion or whatever, and Fink basically killed his own head of security and wants us to replace him. Now this is interesting because we've got a coat and a hat, which looks like Preston E. Downs. If you remember from the Vox phones we've listened to of Preston's, he has always kind of wears a cowboy hat, always has that kind of thick coat idea. We find similar items by the assassination that he performs earlier in the game. I think it's like the hotel room, or the house room where we find two people killed in the bedroom. And we find another hat and another coat right there next to the head of security. But the other interesting thing is, if you look closely at that head of security's face, it actually looks very much like Preston E. Downs. We've got the thick handlebar moustache. We've got a very similar kind of furrowed eyeline. That was an awesome money trick shot. That deserves a replay. I love that. Straight over the top of that. Fantastic. Fink obviously is about to throw some stuff at us.
Let's find Shen Lin and get the hell out of here.
Now, all I ask is that you finish what you started to it. Wouldn't want to disappoint the other applicants. Our first candidate is a veteran of Peking. Now, what's that they say about old soldiers? Frankly, my money's on you. He's something of an old hand at handling explosives. Only man I know who hasn't lost a limb working with them. Yet.
Right, well, let's put as we're about to get attacked, let's put my gear back to something a little more helpful. We're obviously not going to need the Handyman Nemesis stuff here. But in defeating the Handyman, we picked up that interesting one, which was called tunnel vision, if you remember. And what tunnel vision does, if I'll just quickly fade to it, it increases our damage when we look down the sight, but it decreases our damage when we are not looking down the sight. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that particular respect. Now, I do shoot down the sights quite a lot in terms of my gameplay style. I don't when I'm using shotguns, but I do when I use the carbine, and I do most of the time when I'm using the hand cannon. So let's try it during this fight and see if we think it really makes a difference. Anyway, I was talking about Preston E. Downs, as you enjoy my elite combat skills here. Yeah, that's head of security who we find dead. It really looks like Preston E. Downs from the picture that we get in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, there's a few possible explanations for this. I mean, maybe they just happen to look very similar. Popular haircut of the time, so maybe the head of security just looks a little bit like Preston E. Downs. But then why have we got the cowboy hat and the jacket around that particular location as well? That's clearly a hint for something. Bioshock doesn't really tend to sling around items, you know, just funsies. You know, there's so much meaning in this game. I don't think that would go through unless it was intended or something. Now, it is just possible, of course, that the head of security or anyone involved in security wears cowboy hats and jackets. So it could just mean that Preston E. Downs kind of works in some sort of security and kind of like physical job. So does the head of security, so they wear the same clothes. Okay, plausible. It could just mean that that they've used the same kind of character model, you know, that they had a character model that looked a bit like that, and they just kind of slung it on the wall to be the head of security. So it could just be an accident. But one of the theories that has been put forward on some forums is that perhaps that is Preston E. Downs in this universe. I mean, we never meet the Preston of this universe. We only kind of come across him later once we kind of change universes and we start hearing his later kind of voxophones and things like that. So is it possible that one of the other variables in other universes is what eventually ends up happening to him? Now, there are kind of counter arguments to that, which is that at some point Fink refers to the name of his head of security on one of these kind of voiceovers, and he doesn't say Preston and he doesn't say Downs. Or could it even be that Preston E. Downs, that person that's hung up outside the wall, is not the head of security? Could it be that Preston actually has come this way looking for Daisy and has been caught by them or caught by Fink and has been strung on the wall? I don't know, but it's an interesting similarity between characters about whether that is supposed to be Preston or acknowledge him in some way. And if you've got any theories, do stick them in the comment section and tell me who you think that is on the wall, and if you think it has any links to Preston, who you will be hearing more about later as we pick up more Vox phones from his character arc, as we talked about earlier. Now, as I continue to fling crows at these poor men.
Enough of the opening act.
Yeah.
Your true rival is an expert with the automata. Wants to replace all our security with machines.
Oh, good.
I'll give the old boy credit, though. It would be fewer mouths to feed.
So, yet another Patriot to take down. And a couple of turrets, it looks like, in the distance. We'll try and use the similar tactic for now. We'll try and possess it where possible to try and get the turrets and the Patriot to kind of take out each other as much as we can. But yeah, earlier I was talking about what are your favourite quotes in Bioshock Infinite, you know, the ones that make you think, and of course just the ones that kind of stick in your head that you remember after the game. I mean, one of the favourite ones, of course, has to be right at the end, which is where you've got there's always a lighthouse, there's always a man, there's always a city, which does frame the Bioshock universe brilliantly, and also provide connection between Bioshock 1, Bioshock 2, Bioshock Infinite, this idea that they are connected by lighthouses. And of course that takes the connection to an even more complex level, because then you could kind of ask, well, are we talking just physical lighthouses, or are we using lighthouses in the symbolic sense that they used at the end of the game? Because when we have that end sequence and we're travelling from lighthouse to lighthouse to lighthouse, they aren't supposed to be real lighthouses, but more gateways from each variation of universe. So you could make the assumption that this means that every single universe has its own man with a lighthouse with a city, or it could simply mean that every Bioshock game is going to have a man and a lighthouse and a city, or indeed it could mean both. Now, another possible question to then be thrown up from that is, do Rapture and Columbia exist in the same universe, or are they, or do you have to travel through a lighthouse, if you like, to get from one to the other? Because now we do travel from one to the other, and it's definitely a different universe when we kind of hear through the tears. You know, Fink says that he kind of looks through the. So we'll just change our setup here a little bit. Because our shield is dropping too quickly, so if we put on that piece of gear that actually gives us our shield doubling up quicker, I think that will assist us in this particular battle. And sorry, tunnel vision, but I don't think you've been particularly useful. So let's flick it to fleet feet to give us a bit more manoeuvrability when we're trying to take these things down. Anyway, so I was talking about whether Columbia and Rapture exist in the same universe, and the implication from when the Fink brothers say that they listen to the tears is that these are different universes, or at the very least different times. So I'll be quiet now while Fink's speaking.
Were the man for the job, but now I can say with certainty that I was quite wrong.
I'm not interested in your job, Fink.
Now, I know all about your little job for Fitzroy, but do you really want to take her offer over mine? Do you know how many people would kill to be head of Fink Security? You're a tough nut to crack, Mr. DeWitt. A tough nut, but I promise you this. I will get what I want.
Just before we go back to Columbia and Rapture, one interesting question to be asked here is, we turned down this job. We aren't interested in being the head of the security, but is that a constant or a variable? Does that mean there are actually other universes where we accept this job, we become the head of security, and of course, well, what's the outcome there? Or do the Lutesses always engineer us or persuade us in some way not to take that job to avoid that particular scenario? Infusion, thank you kindly.
Nice.
And I think we have both of these salts already, because obviously the Lutesses are kind of guiding us somewhat towards trying to save Elizabeth in some way, but so therefore I guess if we become head of security, that option would be taken from us, so that they may well block that in some way. But if there is a different universe for every single option, then it's logical to suggest that as long as this is a genuine option, there's a universe with that particular outcome. And continuing our discussion of memorable quotes from Bioshock is one from Fink himself, the guy that's currently trying to forcibly employ us. But let's talk about it after we have a little look at the First Lady. This, of course, is the airship that we travelled here in, and can also be seen as a piece of propaganda trying to unite their nation around a figurehead. Even a deceased one can be a very kind of effective tool. But yes, Mr. Fink, a brilliant quote from him is actually as we travel down the elevator towards Fink Industries, is when he draws a comparison between nature and the way that
Here you go.
money between nature and the workers, and he instructs them to be like a bee. Do you remember that particular analogy? He talks about how a bee never takes holidays, never complains, works long hours. It purely exists to work, and in such a way he therefore suggests most strongly that it is entirely natural for the blacks, for the Irish, for all the people that are working for him to have very little break, very little pay, and just be content with their role as the worker bees of Columbia. It's not necessarily a persuasive argument, but it is something that very much sets out his viewpoint on life. As I think we're entering an office here which could even be supposed to be Fink's office. It's certainly a very, very grand one with a lovely fireplace and decor. Quite a dark place as well compared to some of the other locations where we find in the game. Almost actually feels more like Rapture than Columbia, this particular one. But the bee quote really does set out his idea of the natural order of things. Pyromaniac, 50% chance to burn nearby enemies. The natural order of things with himself as a hard-working manager, but others fulfilling their roles. I guess he's the queen bee to an extent, but other people fulfilling their accessory role beneath him. The Lutesses, of course, are a wonderful source of quotes in the game. Robert Lutess says, lives, died, will live, dies, died, will die, and draws a comparison to, or a connection between how they are all different states that can exist at the same time in the multiverse theory. All their little kind of pseudo arguments where they talk about whether something is the important question is not what but when but how and etc. There's some lovely little bits of dialogue. So in the comment section below, if you've got some suggestions for your favourite quote of the game or quotes that you think have hidden or separate meanings, then of course do stick them down and we'll discuss them in a future bit, or just chat about it in the comments section as well. Right, well I think we have exhausted all of the rooms around this particular area, so let's head back through the theatre curtain and
Look, there's a door over here. I think that's the way down.
Continue the game. Nothing in this trunk here, unlike the one we had earlier in the hut, in the house earlier. Lovely attention to detail with the makeup chairs, and here's Mr. Fink.
I had thought you a fool, dear brother, when you told me that you heard wonderful music trumpeting from holes in the thin air. I began to doubt your mental integrity. But not only have you made your fortune from these doodads, you have lit the path for me as well.
So there's Fink and Fink, kind of filling in some of the gaps in the plot line that we've kind of discussed previously. The idea that they have stolen ideas through various voxophones and through various tears to other dimensions and things. Now these are the soldiers that are not here to challenge us. You know, if the game wanted to challenge us at this point, they'd be throwing far bigger people at us, and in greater numbers. The game knows that we'll have enough ammo and stuff by now to easily be able to take these guys down. However, if you remember, the purpose of these guys is effectively to die. So when we come back out in a different multiverse where they're still alive, the player, us, the subject, will remember killing them because it was in the immediate past. As I play cat and mouse with this particular one, their purpose is to then help us to start to understand the idea that there can be different versions of people in different universes, and of course their memories will be confused and twisted when we return because of our transition between those different multiverses as the kind of memories combine.
You hold on to this.
Money, look and currency. I always think it's a slight missed opportunity in this game that even though you can climb quite high in quite a lot of places by jumping on boxes, but I don't think I've ever found any lockpicks or ammo or weapons kind of on top of boxes or anything that's kind of involved a kind of slightly platformery aspect. And I'm not in any way suggesting that they should be places we have to run, jump to survive. I don't think that would be right, but I think it could reward a little vertical experimentation or exploration.
Look. Chen Lin, cell number 9.
Think you can crack this one open?
Child's play.
She's very happy to do it.
I used to work for folks like Fink.
Really?
I was with the Pinkertons. They call us in when the workers got restless.
To do what?
Demonstrate the folly of men striking, throwing down tools.
You hurt people.
I'll tell you this. Sometimes there's precious need for folks like Fitzroy.
Why?
Because of folks like me.
All yours.
That little speech there does show quite a big, a significant difference between the morality of Booker and the morality of Comstock. Although Booker can be very brutal, although Booker is a thug on many occasions, the fact that he recognises that he is often the bad guy is something that Comstock would not do. He's there kind of saying, you know, we need Daisy, we need the rebels, we need the revolution to get rid of folks like me, which is, you know, it's an interesting kind of contradiction, isn't it? Like, he almost knows that the actions that he are doing are wrong, and yet
That's the book for the clock shop.
he does them anyway. But his life is in a mess, you know, with all the debts. He ends up selling his own daughters. It's unsurprising that perhaps he finds himself trapped in a life or a value system that he isn't particularly happy with.
Tell us what you know about Fitzroy, you goddamn gook. We know you can hear us. You want to say something? Or you want us to bring in Mrs. Lynn for company? Throw a bucket of ice water on him. We've got 3 more to bring in tonight.
And unfortunately, in this particular universe, this will be the last time we see Mr. Lynn alive, but of course not in the flesh, only in video recorded form. But before we go and discover Mr. Lynn's fate, this is probably going to be a good point to leave this particular episode of Bioshock Infinite Explained. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Let's just have a little listen to this Vox phone here before we depart, and let's take out these guys as well. Always interested in hearing your comments, and always interested in hearing your feedback, so please use those slots below to communicate with me, and I do respond to as many comments as I can. I think those 2 guys are going to take it themselves out now, and here's Mr. Comstock.
To tax the black more than the white, is that not cruel? To forbid the mixing of the races, is that not cruel?
What could people have done to deserve to be locked up in a place like this?
Fink don't need much of a reason.
No. No, he doesn't.
But is it not cruel to banish your children from a perfect garden? Or drown your flock under an ocean of water? Cruelty can be instructive. And what is Columbia, if not the schoolhouse of the Lord?
Just before I go, one of the complaints that does come up about Bioshock repeatedly is, and there aren't many people that complain about it because it is a very good game, but the way we had the Vox phone there was drowned out by the dialogue, and there was nothing we could do to stop it or prevent one talking over the other. It's a minor thing, but it happens fairly regularly, and it would definitely be something them to look at next time. And in fact, in part 14, I will be talking about some of the things that some people have said that this game lacked, and some things they preferred about Bioshock 1 and 2 as opposed to this game, and maybe discussing and debating them. So take care, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.